Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. My goodness, the new year is almost here. We have a couple of great guests coming right up that are sharing their wisdom and insights that will help propel you in the new year. Karen Steil is here today to talk to us about her new book, The Church of Profitsea. So let's welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you, Marianne. It's great to be here.
Yeah, what a joy it is to have you here. So I understand your book was just hit the #1 bestseller, which you got to love that.
Yeah. Its time has come, Marianne. Its time has come. We are living in an abundant universe that is pouring out resources for us to get everything we want at all times.
How exciting is that? Well, and so what started you on this path, Karen?
Well, the Church of Profitsea came to me 20 years ago, and I was wanting to be a unity minister. I was getting ready to go to school to be a unity minister, and a multi-level marketing company came into my life for the first time. Never had been to one before that actually shows all the compensation plan and how it works. And because it was a product of positive thinking, and actually it wasn't even a product. I don't know if you remember the People's Network. It was 20 years ago. They had a satellite television network that was broadcasting all positive information, and I just got so excited not only to help people bring positive messages to the world, but to get rich in the meantime. And I was going to be a minister. I am a minister. And I thought, oh, my God, you could actually get rich by loving your neighbor. What a concept. When I got this vision of the Church of Prophecy, my teeth vibrated for a week. I was so excited about it. And then couldn't wrap my mind around it totally. So here I am 20 years later, and I figured the only way to get this message out to people is through a book.
Well, and so has this been something that you've been teaching for some time, and the book kind of came together as a result of all that work?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I have. Church of Prophecy has been through many incarnations, a physical church being one of them, a teaching lecture series being another. I'm really, really strong into universal laws. I really believe that the law of attraction is the most powerful law in the universe. And if people only understood that, there would be so much less angst in the world. We are creating our own reality by the thoughts we think, and that's a fact.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, and it's been proven over and over again. I mean, it's easy for people to really focus on something, good or bad, and that will show up.
And it's the law of attraction. One of Unity Church's basic principles is law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind will produce after their own kind. And this is going back 150 years of teaching and science. I mean, I'm so into putting together spirituality and physicality as to help people understand we can't separate them. We are pure, positive, non-physical, God force, source, love, energy. That's what we are. 99% of us, we're pure energy. And Einstein knew this. And Einstein even said it. No, he said, match the frequency of the reality you want and you must have it. And that's what the Church of Prophecy is all about, is helping people learn how to practice thinking. And you don't even have to think, you only have to feel. I mean, if you just know how you feel, you'll know if you're on the frequency that you want to be on.
Well,
am I making any sense?
Oh, yes, of course. You're singing to the choir here. You know.
Oh, okay.
So is it, so with all the work that you've done with this, does it matter what a person's religious beliefs are in order to appreciate and be a follower of the work that you do?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, and I truly believe the Church of Prophecy is an MLM, Making Love Manifest. And as you know, in MLMs, there are legs that blossom and grow and experience. Well, in regular MLM, multi-level marketing, they experience money, but in the Church of Prophecy, they experience happiness, health, and wealth. Because to me, it's a package deal. It's a package deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of spiritual people out there that are too spiritual to be rich. But I don't know any rich person that's too rich to be spiritual. Mm-hmm. And when you make this a package deal, it's all about knowing who you are, coming from your source energy, which is love. When you're coming from that spot and you know who you are, you're going to be happy. And when you're happy, you're going to be healthy. And when you're happy and healthy, the universe is going to pour out so many great ideas on you for wealth that you won't have time to do it all.
Well, and so let's say that there's somebody that says, gosh, this sounds perfect. I want to get started. Where would they start?
Where would they start? With their own belief system. The Church of Prophecy is an MLM that is slowly getting the idea out there, and nobody, absolutely no. We're calling the $100 a month that we want to charge and pay back. The church is paying back 96% of everything it makes to the members. We're a church for profit, just like the name says. Mm-hmm. So the members are going to get all the money that comes into the church, except 4% of it, for helping to build the church. And this is not going to happen until there's a tipping point. I mean, everybody has got to already be on board. It's a 12 by 12 matrix. We're going to have 12 mentors training new mentors, 12 by 12 by 12.
So with this church that you've developed, what are some of the things that the members would get?
Mentorship. You get to be around people who...
So they'll have mentoring in how to move their lives forward in a new way?
Yes, absolutely. To be around people who know who you truly are and believe in you is the most powerful thing we can do. Mm-hmm. The product in this church is self-actualization. That's what it is. Do you want to be the absolute best you can be? Hang out with people who teach by example.
And so you're looking for people who are going to be more involved in the church and help grow it, or do you already have those people in place?
Well, they are in place. They just don't know it yet. They'll figure that out soon, right? What I am looking for is for people who do not need money, but believe in this concept so powerfully that they will not be able to stop themselves to get involved. And I say that in my book. The first 12 mentors in this church do not need the money. And actually, nobody should need money to get into this church because it's not about money. It's about growing yourself. Self-worth equals net worth in this church. And the more you believe in yourself, the better you're going to be, the better off you're going to be. Yeah, I mean, I said in my book, I quadrupled my income, in 4 years by believing this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know in your book you quote the Bible quite a bit. Is it because that you found just the phrases that you quote, the passages that you quote, to be so powerful?
Yes, and that's exactly right. I'm not a fundamentalist. Mm-hmm. I just know that there are certain things in there jump out at me so powerfully, like the law of belief. And that's what the rock of this church is. It's about the law of belief. And my God, through the whole New Testament, it's all about belief. Mm-hmm. We are what we believe.
Yeah.
And the law of attraction will keep giving us more of it to prove we are right. So what do you believe? Do you believe you're the physical extension of source energy, God, in this physical body here to create? Or do you believe that's for somewhere in the distant future when you die?
Mm-hmm.
This church is not for the latter.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people don't really believe that God wants them to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. And you believe that that's exactly the case.
That's who we are. That's what we came here to do. Be happy, healthy, and wealthy. And we have all the resources within us to have anything we want without taking anything away from anyone else. And that's the bottom line. We're each a universe unto ourselves, creating our own vortex, these swirling mass of thoughts and energies falling around us, and the law of attraction is bringing to us that which we need to be happy, healthy, and wealthy.
Why do you think there are so many people that are not?
Because they don't believe they deserve it. There's a set belief. The most powerful belief in the world is how much people think they're worth. I mean, that's why you have people working minimum wage jobs, and you have people working mid-wage jobs, and you have people working above. But even those people who are working for a living, making a lot of money, if they aren't working, they're not making that money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's a self-worth thing. I believe in using universal laws as a leverage to keep the flow going. Just keep the flow going in perpetuity.
I think that's such a great way to go. And I know in your book you really do give entrepreneurs a lot of praise.
I love entrepreneurs. They are the risk takers. They are the barrier breakers. They're the prophets for profit in a world that just... People don't appreciate the free thinkers. They just don't appreciate them. They call them crazy. But I think that the vision is changing. I think the world is changing. I think the world is changing a lot faster than most people want it to. And I think that the entrepreneurs are the leaders, the spiritual leaders of the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, you know, you kind of touched on this a little bit in our discussion earlier. You talk about genius creators and profit centers, and you're giving those titles to people. Why is that? Is there a specific reason for that?
Yeah, because we're the center of our universe. We are creating our own universe. We're the genius creator of our own universe, and we are our own profit center. There's not because there's over 7.5 billion of us. Each one of us has to be their own profit center. We cannot depend on someone else to write our paycheck. It's just, that's not what I am all about. That's not what the Church of Profitsea is all about. Our wealth, our resources, everything comes from within. It does not come from without. It comes from within. And this world is so magnificent. It is so magnificent. It has all the resources we need, to have everything we want without taking anything away from anyone else, I reiterate.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know that you also talk about vibrational set points. So what does that mean?
That's very powerful, very, very powerful. And that's what I'm talking about, the law of attraction. I wish people understood it like they understood the law of gravity, because nobody in their right mind is going to go to the top of a 10-story building and jump off, and then when they die, blame it on the law of gravity. The law of attraction is just as powerful, and it is bringing to us the thoughts that we are thinking. And it's not just thoughts, it's our feelings. Our feelings are more important than our thoughts, because our feelings tell us what we're thinking. We have so many thoughts going at the same time, we can't sort it all out, but we know how we feel in any given moment. And that is our vibrational set point. If I am feeling depressed, discouraged, resentful, angry, fearful, if I'm feeling those things, I am attracting things into my reality that are going to give me more reason to be depressed about, fearful about, angry about. It's just the way it works.
Well, and in your book, you talk about death. Why don't you expand on that a little bit for us?
I don't believe in it. There is no such thing. We are eternal vibrational beings. We are eternal vibrational beings. Our body is nothing more than a vessel that we're using right here in this moment to expand on what's already here. We're evolving. We're evolving. That's what it's all about. It's evolution. And we're doing it on and on and on and on. And when you talk about eternity is right now. That's where it is. Here we are, right this minute. There will never be a better minute than this one until the next thought comes through us that tells us, oh, how can this be better? Oh, that's a great idea. Let's do that. This is supposed to be fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, do you know, and it's interesting. I know your book, you have a chapter that covers, kind of, it's almost like written like the 12 steps of AA. And
I love that chapter.
How did you have that inspiration? How did that come into being?
It came into being because I was in the 12 steps for 11 years. October 26, 1976, I walked through the door of my first AA meeting, and it transformed my life forever. Forever will never be the same. But I didn't stay there. You got to grow. You got to go. You got to move. You got to, being a gerbil in a cage, 1 through 12, 1 through 12, 1 through 12, could drive you nuts after a while. And after I was in there for 11 years, it almost did. But I love that program, always will love it. It's a great starting point to help people understand that there is a God of your own understanding. It does not have to be the God that you were raised with and programmed to believe in. Go out and find your own God of your understanding.
And that seems to be kind of the cornerstone of your church.
The God of your own understanding. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. If you want to believe Jesus is your God, that's fine. He was mine for a long, long time. Now I call him my inner being. I don't call him Jesus anymore. He's my inner being. He was my starting point.
Well, and so, you've used so many great resources for this church. How did you get to the point where you were looking at this as a separate religion?
I don't know, because I don't see it as a separate religion. I see it as the evolution of anyone's religion. I think no matter what religion you're in, you can dig down real deep and get that personal relationship with the source energy that you are. I'm going to say source energy created you. No, you are source energy creating this life experience. But everyone needs to find that out for themselves. Words don't teach. I cannot stand here all day and tell you this. It has to be something that flips a switch in you that says, yeah, you're right. Let those who have ears hear. It just, all of a sudden it happens, and you can't force it on people. I don't consider myself a teacher. I consider myself a leader that teaches by example.
What are some of your favorite lessons?
Everything's a lesson.
I know, really, right?
And it's just life. Life's a dance. Sometimes you lead and sometimes you follow. That's a country western song.
I'm sure it is. Well, it's interesting, especially, as you are, growing and creating this, I'm sure there have been some things along the way that have kind of surprised you, like, wow, I didn't really realize that could be as powerful as it is, or, as you're developing everything that you have.
I think a real turning point in my life was when I was a fundamentalist Christian, and the minister in the church was praying for a local business to fail because it was of the devil. It was a candle shop, okay? They sold tarot cards. And when that happened, when I listened to that, something just ripped through me. That the God of my understanding is not condemning anyone. And it's people who condemn. It's not God. That's the way I look at it. And that was the biggest lesson.
Oh, I bet. Because that would really kind of have you kind of make someone stop and go, wait a minute, what's going on here?
You would think. But a lot of people believe that candle shop that sells tarot cards is of the devil. And I'm not putting them down. Believe me, they are creating their own reality, and they are getting what they believe. And that's okay.
So, most religions don't really talk about materialism as something that's a good thing. Yet, and I know yours really promotes it. So how do you feel about that as far as just a belief, and how it's working in regards to like the coaching you've done and the teaching that you've done as well?
It's not that I'm promoting materialism. I am promoting that you can't separate spiritualism from materialism. And I don't even like to call it spiritualism. We are vibrational beings. I'm a vibrational being. I don't call myself a spiritual being anymore, because spiritual being has a connotation of being good. And if you're good, that means someone else is bad. I'm a vibrational being. And the materialism that is happening as a result of my consciousness, my ever-flowing source energy consciousness that is flowing through the universe, creating all this material stuff, it's good. Materialism is a wonderful thing, but it's the extension of source energy. It's all good.
Well, and I know you use Bible quotes also that point to that same message.
Yes. The banner Bible verse for the Church of Profitsea is Psalms 145:16. It says, "You open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing." Desire is the core of manifestation. It is the core. Every time we desire something, it is given. Ask and it is given. Right? Every time we desire something, it is given. Only it is given to us in a vibrational form. And then it goes through its seasons and it becomes manifest as long as we don't destroy it. As long as we don't doubt it. As long as we don't doubt ourselves, as long as we believe in ourselves, as long as we believe in our desires, as long as we don't put ourselves down for having desires, it's very, very important to understand the uniqueness of every single individual, even though we all are one. I say that with a grin on my face because I love the spiritual, we are all one thing. We are. We're all physical. We're all non-physical source energy. That's what we are. But as unique individuals, we are so important. We are so important to bring the evolution of mankind forward into the next era, the next age of spiritual economics will trump hatred. And that's a promise.
Well, and it kind of brings me to my kind of next question here. In your book, you talk about special relationships as if it was a bad thing. So can you kind of just expand upon that?
Oh, my God. If there's anyone listening who has ever read A Course in Miracles or knows about A Course in Miracles, that's where I took it from. I was a big Course in Miracles fan for a long time. And special relationships, those are conditional love. I truly believe humans are incapable of unconditional love in and of itself. When you are centered in the source energy that you are, when you know who you are capable of unconditional love. But for the most part, people are compromising with each other, and I'll do this for you if you do that for me. If you do this for me, then I will love you. If you don't do that for me, it's all over. The special relationships that we decide how we want somebody to behave in order for us to feel better. That's a special relationship.
Yeah, it's really getting to the point where one may be compromising their values and in order to fit that mold.
Yes, and it happens all the time. I see it all the time. I see people staying in a relationship that is destroying them for fear of being alone. Or for fear of financial insecurity. That's a big one, too. Yeah.
I would have to agree with you. I know a few people who have done that, who have stayed in relationships because it's just, being alone is worse than being with someone who doesn't appreciate them.
And I live alone. I love my own company. Being alone has given me more strength than I ever knew I had.
It's interesting. They say that, I've heard said that, you can't really enjoy someone else's company until you first can enjoy your own.
Good saying.
Yeah, because it's true. If you can't really sit with yourself and like the good parts, the bad parts, whatever, then how are you going to be able to accept other people as they show up?
And really, if you sit with yourself truly in meditation and feel who you really are, feel it, you will know that there are no bad parts. There are no bad parts. We're all here banging around, doing the best we can to move humanity forward, upward, and there's nothing going wrong here. There's just nothing going wrong. It never ends.
So, with all this great information, and gosh, it sounds like such a great group to be connected with and be a part of, what are some final thoughts you would like to leave our listeners with today?
Can I read my poem?
Of course.
I love this poem.
I know you do.
This is a song. This is a song for genius creators because I believe every child born is the light of the world, and this is my poem to you. Life is good. It's supposed to be fun. Life is eternal and free. Wherever I go, whatever I do, I am my own legacy. I will return again and again to give birth to a new way of seeing, for I am a child of the universe, one whose source is well-being. We are all explorers and trailblazers sailing uncharted seas. Desire is the wind in our sails. Our passion summons the breeze. There is no call for humility. Give credit where credit is due. There will never be, in all eternity, another you. And thank you, Marianne.
Oh, do you know what? Thank you so much, Karen. And thanks for, just taking the time to be with us and share your book with us and your community. Where can people connect with you and learn more about all the great things you're doing?
Well, my website is happyhealthyandwealthy.com. When you first get to it, you see a video of money falling at you. If that turns you off, the Church of Profitsea was not meant for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dina, there's some place for everybody. I believe the water always evens out. So.
I agree.
Karen, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It's my pleasure. I enjoyed it immensely.
Oh, thank you. We are going to pause here for a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1-2-3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Do you know that you can become a genius at any age? Do you know that you can change your life and create a brilliant life for yourself? Hi, I am Olympia LaPointe, an award-winning rocket scientist who you more than likely have seen on TED Talks, Impact Theory, and PBS. Check out my latest book, Answers Unleashed, The Science of Unleashing Your Brain's Power. Simply go to AnswersUnleashed.com books and check it out for yourself. You'll find the tools to help you create the life you've always wanted.
The highly acclaimed and newly released book, The Hand Part 2 by Lynn Van Praag Grattan, describes the journey between a psychic medium and a family who lost a son. Messages from Beyond Eternity's Gate is of love and healing. For more information, visit www.lynnvanpraag-grattan.com. That's www.lynnvanpraag-grattan.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted to be introducing our next guest, Tim Olson, otherwise known as Timo, and he's here today to talk to us about his book, Growing Up Nobody. Now, Timo is an author, podcast host, blogger, and motivator who tells his unique story in his book, Growing Up Nobody. So let's welcome to the show, Timo.
Hello, Marianne. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. And my goodness, I mean, what a story. It just grabs at your heart.
Well, yeah, I guess, I never thought of myself as somebody who had a story that people would connect with or anything until we had people start to tell me that. And one person came up to me and said, you need to write a book about your life. And I thought, well, me? Why? But when I sat down, I had actually been writing a little bit about my life for my kids. And so I kind of turned it into this story because I had these people tell me you're an inspiration. And I thought, okay, well, we'll see what we can do with that.
Well, it takes a lot of courage to write about your life, especially as open as you are about it, because you talk about a lot of different things. And I can see where a lot of people would relate with this, because just about everyone that we know has something going on. There's no little picket white fence that, that doesn't have some kind of something happening. Most people do have something going on in the home. And so you probably have a lot more people relating to you because of that. Because, my gosh, before the age of 24, you had gone through quite a bit.
Yeah, and you're right. That's the one thing I found out afterwards is, I knew my story was something, but it was just my story. And when I started talking and telling people about it and opening myself up to hear the responses I got back, people would open up and tell me about their situations. And you start to see like how everybody just has something, some type of abuse or hurt, or, sometimes it's the smaller things you're dealing with, but everybody has something that they're dealing with in their life. And so what I hope to do is that, I hope my story, which people would think, why do I want to hear about some guy that we've never heard of before or anything? But that's just part of it. I am just an average guy like everybody else who's gone through some things, and I'm using that hopefully to connect with people that they will take a look at themselves and be able to say, okay, this guy has made it, maybe I can too.
I think it provides a lot of inspiration because, you've been through such a tough road. Because you're dealing with loss and, your father had mental illness, and then, there's just a lot of things like right on top of one another that continued to happen.
And that was the worst part. It was so close together in years when things were happening that it just seemed like it was piling on. And it really made it hard to feel like you were ever going to get past that part of your life, So, and I've seen that with so many other people too. And you just feel, that feeling that how are you going to get through just to the next day even sometimes? You don't even know how you're going to wake up the next morning and face the day.
Yeah. Well, why don't you share a little bit with our listeners, like some of your story? Because, we want them obviously to go pick up their own copy of Growing Up Nobody. But why don't you share a little bit so that we can have an understanding of all the, some of the things that you went through?
Sure. Just like everybody else when I was younger, I guess I kind of felt like we lived in a normal house, except for I very early on was being bullied in school. So I really had this hate for school. But as time went on, my dad had mental illness issues, only we didn't know what it was. And through the years, it progressed, got worse and worse, and was a strain on our entire family. And for some reason, between my mom and him, obviously, was an issue. But I have one sister. I was the other person that he turned to. And I don't know if it's because I was the man or becoming a man in the house or what, but him and I had a horrible, horrible relationship. And we fought an awful lot. And this whole craziness in our house eventually turned into where my mom divorced my dad and we all left. And at that point, that really sent his mental state down even further. He really believed that we had a good family. He everything he perceived was really different. His reality was really different. So when it didn't go the way he thought, it really did. It set him back even further. So he fell down even further. And my mom remarried and moved to California. I only had 1 year of high school, so I stayed behind and moved in with him. And at first it was kind of good. He was glad that I was back in his life, but it just got bad again and worse again. And so I ended up moving out before I was even done with high school. And shortly thereafter, a couple of years after, I got a call and my mom had passed away. And that was a real defining moment, of course, in my life because it was a total shock. She was a diabetic and stuff for a good portion of her life, and those were part of the issues that her heart ended up collapsing. So it was a total shock. But for my dad and his mental state, this became even worse. He really honestly believed our family would be put back together at some point, and when this happened, he now knew that would never happen. And this became his downfall. And he went in this spiral of not even, personally, I believe he was just done with life. And he just aged really fast, and it was, in a way, kind of interesting to watch as he aged really fast. And I don't mean interesting like, wow, but I mean, it is. It's how I believe mentally, your mental state can control your body even to where when he was done with life, he was done. And he aged and he aged. And there is a picture in the back of my book where my dad and I are sitting on the couch together, and I'm actually now like a year older than he was in that picture. And he looks like a 60-year-old man, and I'm 49. And it's amazing to look at. But anyway, because of that, then he ended up passing away 3 years after my mom died. And in between all this, I have to take care of my sister. I had my own relationship going on that ended up failing, and so many other parts in there. And it happened in about, from their divorce to when my dad died was about, 5, 7, 6 years. And between my mom's death and my dad's death, 3 years. So it was a lot, and especially for a young kid in high school to a young guy at age 24 when my dad finally died, that to go through and try to deal with by yourself, because we didn't have much family, any real support. And so I felt very alone in this fight for most of my life, just to try to make it and try to get through that next day.
Yeah. Well, and, it seems like when people are going through difficult times, it does feel like that, like one thing after another, they're just being hit with. And it's like, when is this ever going to end? When do I get a break? And so I can see how your story has become so relatable to people, especially when we talk about the mental health piece, because a lot of times, that's like a taboo topic. Most people don't discuss that. It's like, ooh, we can talk about everything else, but just not that, because it's a lot of times either families don't know what they're going through, or if they do, it has such a stigma. It's like, gosh, we don't talk about that, And
it amazes me, when we went through this, we're talking the early 90s, the stigma, especially then, was a lot worse, but it's hard for me to even imagine. It still is bad today. And especially among men, we just refuse to admit to ourselves when we're going through something, and that we might actually need some help, because you're right, mental illness, there is nothing wrong with it. When my dad was on medication, he still suffered and was, very hard still to deal with and things, but it was 10 times better than when he wasn't on his medication. And but for a lot of people, some medication and you can function as normal as can be and not know. I had a small little bout with depression myself, and it can help. So us guys need to learn to stand up and say, hey, we need some help, and not feel guilty, because you're right. Mental illness, it's nothing, if you broke your arm, it's almost the same type of thing. Or if you had the flu, you'd go to the doctor and find something to get better. And yet we don't want to do it when it comes to mental illness.
I think there's still a lot to be learned when it comes to mental illness. People aren't quite sure, like, what do you do and what do you say, if someone's mentally ill, and there's still a lot that's, I don't want to say undiscovered, but just not really, the awareness isn't there for people how to approach people that have mental illness, and, things to say, maybe not to say, or what to kind of expect. And back in the 90s, there was none of that. Right.
Yeah, I didn't know how to deal with that with my dad either. And in fact, for a long time, he went undiagnosed because of that too. And you're right. And mental illness really runs the gamut. My dad was kind of an extreme case. He was manic depressive, and he was paranoid. He had paranoid delusions, and thought people were coming after him at times, and different things. That's an extreme case, but a lot of people who suffer with depression, and any type of mental illness, they're not on that extreme end either. A lot of us, because in a way, I almost feel like everybody's got a little bit of mental illness to some extent in different areas, and that's just my own opinion, because we all have something we're dealing with. And so some of us may need some medication. When you get into a depression like I was before, I slept all the time. I could get up and function every day, go to work, but then I'd come home and I would just sleep. And that is totally not me. I'm always busy type of guy. But when that hit me, I just slept. And there was nothing wrong with me. I was a normal person, but I was just depressed at that time. A little bit of medication or seeing a doctor or a therapist or something like that is something that some people need. And it's not a horrible sentence. Like I said, it's like getting the flu. And we don't get upset with somebody who's got a flu or a cold or pneumonia or something and make fun of them. Really, most mental illnesses are just a chemical imbalance, and you had no control over that. My dad had no control over where he ended up. He really just had a chemical imbalance.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you're right. I mean, we don't get angry at people that have heart attacks, or diabetes, right, or, colds or what have you. So why would we do with this? And it's because it's just, I think that it's not talked about enough, and people don't understand what they're dealing with or how to react or how to engage,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people think of that, the mental illness of that extreme person that's on the street corner yelling in the air, type of thing, and that's not the case. Those are extreme cases. It runs the gamut, just like any other sickness or anything too. So it can be very mild, and it can be to that extreme.
Yeah, it can go either way. Now, now I know that you went through a period where you were getting picked on a lot, and life was just miserable. And then that changed when you went into theater.
Yeah. What I found when I was in that period, my parents are still together, but my home life was crazy and my school life was crazy. I didn't feel like I had any safe space at all, that someplace that I felt very welcome. And I was eating lunch alone because that's what I did, because I didn't really have any friends. A teacher approached me and said, "You should come do something in the theater." And I thought, there's no way I'm going to go do that. I'm not a jock or anything, but I didn't think that was going to be for me. And I eventually went because it kept bugging me. And I thought, well, I'll just finally go in there and see what this guy wants me to do. And it became this place where I found things that I was really good at, because I had no confidence in myself. But all of a sudden I realized I was really good at a lot of these things, whether we were doing lighting or building sets, or even I started to do a little acting after I got more confident. So I loved the theater. I loved the people that were around there. And finally I was making friends, and it really boosted my confidence when I found something that I was good at.
Mm-hmm. It probably provided you a great escape, too, from, what was just going on around you.
Most definitely, because I didn't have to go home, and I got to go to a place that people actually liked me back, So because if I went home, we were just going to fight. My dad and I don't know, I consider myself a good kid. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't go out when I wasn't supposed to, or any of that kind of stuff. I thought I was a good kid, but for some reason, he always could find something in me that I wasn't doing right, whether it was just I was in my room and I should be out in the living room with the family. He would just come down on me for it. And so there was this weird dynamic all the time. So, yes, it was a great place for me to get away and escape and really boost the confidence in myself that I really needed, because up to that point I was very shy, would not stick up for myself when I was picked on or anything. I was just scared, and I had no idea really who I was as a person.
Well, and I know, it took a while, but I know that you got to a place where you and your wife were at church and someone said something to you that changed your life.
Yeah, I eventually, after my dad died and everything, my now wife, we met just before my dad died. So kudos to her for sticking through me, because to meet somebody and within a couple months have their dad died and everything that I had gone through, and she stuck through it. But yeah, we were married and we just went to church because you're supposed to take your kids to Sunday school and stuff. And we ended up going to this class thinking maybe we'd meet some people, not for the religious part of it at all or anything, just to meet some people. And it was a several day course, and going through it, stuff started happening to us that we were thought very odd and strange, because everything they said we related to. And we ended up both becoming Christians. And then in studying about Christianity, the one biggest thing was about forgiveness. I mean, that's basically what Christianity is. And whether you're a Christian or not, I just discovered that you need to learn to forgive people in your life that hurt you, to free your mind, because I lived very bitter, angry for a very long time at people that I thought could have stepped up during those years and helped me out. And so then I was even mad at my dad, even though his mental illness controlled what he did. I was really mad at my dad for what he put me through. And even actually more mad at my mom, because she knew what she was doing. So I had to learn to forgive all these people in my past. And once I did that, my life changed so much. All that stuff was gone. I was just free. I was free from all that anxiety and anger and bitterness and everything. And so I just found that that's what people need. And most of all, you got to be able to forgive yourself, which is very difficult, because you've been there through everything that you did. Mm-hmm. And because of my anger and bitterness, I wasn't always the nicest person. I'm not saying I was super mean all the time, but I could be very mean at times. You were either with me or you were against me, one or the other at all times. I didn't have a middle ground for people, so I could just turn really fast if I felt you were trying to sabotage me or kind of go against me. And so forgiving yourself is one of the biggest things that you can do, and it's very, very difficult, because sometimes we've all done things that we're not proud of, and said things and done things, and it's very difficult. But boy, when you do, I tell you, it just is the most freeing thing in your life.
Yeah, and forgiveness can be really a tough one for a lot of people, especially if you go through such challenges as a kid, and you're having to grow up a lot faster. It's easy to build resentments, and where were all these people when I needed it? Or how, my dad, even though, he was mentally ill, he's acting this way, or whatever the case may be. I mean, everyone's got their journey, but it must have been really tough to go through that forgiveness piece. Or did you find that it just hit you and all of a sudden you got it?
No, I didn't just get it. In fact, and this is in my book, and everybody would probably find their path to forgiveness differently, but this is how I went through it. I put people in categories, which once I understood them more, it made it easier for me to forgive them. Like my dad, I have a category called the unintentional offender. And for me, these are people that have a lack of knowledge. They never witnessed good relationships, so they don't know how to react or act with you. They may not know your past and can do things and say things to you that can be hurtful. And my dad's, because of his mental illness, I really believe he was just this unintentional offender to me. He didn't really set out to hurt me. He didn't really set out to have this horrible relationship with his son, but his mental illness just didn't allow him to be there. And so that kind of person is a little easier to forgive than somebody I call a direct offender. These people will hurt you on purpose. And I even think these are some of the worst people, your rapists and murderers and stuff. And sometimes I even think your spouse can fit in this, because they know how to push your buttons and they'll upset you on purpose.
You get that push all the way around, yeah. Well,
yeah.
It's interesting once you start on that journey of forgiveness. I mean, they're like how you were talking about, there's the friends and family members and people that have wronged you, but then it seems like the hardest one is yourself,
Yes. And really, forgiveness altogether is a gift for yourself. And it's not saying that you're letting these people off the hook for things that they did. It doesn't mean that you forget. It doesn't mean they have to be in your life, because you forgave them. It's just you quit letting that take up space in your own head and running those tapes over and over and over again. And, and I didn't know this until I started really looking into it and I started doing these interviews and talking more to that if you go on WebMD and check it out, that stress, which you're going to have if you're not going to forgive people and you're always going to be angry and bitter, the stress causes 75 to 90% of all doctor visits. So physically, it can affect you too if you don't let this stuff go. So it not only has this effect in your mind and the freedom that you'll feel in your mind, but your health can be affected by a lot too. Your blood pressure, and you yourself could suffer from depression and anxiety. And the one thing too, I think not forgiving kind of gives you a license to seek revenge at times. You can kind of go back at somebody and get them just because you think that they did something to you, which once you've forgiven, you're not taking that course of action anymore.
Yeah. It puts you in a different place where you can respond instead of react, Right. And even just, in my case, I'm talking like some big things when you talk about my dad, mental illness, but even forgiveness for small things. I've just seen it in the business world where people, Joe will do something, and so you're going to take that account away from him, and you'll underbid it, and you'll work for less money just because you're going to go after him because you can't stand what he did to you or said to you before, and it's like, why? You're working for less money now and stuff, just let things go, it doesn't mean you got to be his friend, but, forgive, move on, and do your own thing, run your own race. Yeah. Be able to do your own thing. So, I know, talk about run your own race. So you're on a mission now to teach men how to be better fathers and brothers and parents and husbands.
Yes. Well, I did not have the best male role models in my family. And so my biggest thing is I really want to see people who have situations like mine break dysfunction and not pass it on to the next generation. My wife comes from an alcoholic family. Of course, the things that happened in my family and stuff. Our kids know nothing of these things. They don't see us. It's not my wife and I don't have a drink here and there, but we do it when we go on vacation and things. They don't see us drink or anything. We don't ever get drunk. They have no idea what that's like to have the dad come home stumbling up the steps of your house and stuff like my wife did. And so, yes, I want other men to be able to break some of these lines of dysfunction, learn to forgive themselves for things that we've done, and be able to move forward. The greatest gift you can give your kids and the future generations is to not pass on a lot of this family dysfunction. So, a lot of us who didn't have good dads or our dads weren't around or anything, I've talked to a lot of these men. And it's amazing how a man 40, 50, even 60 years old will break down and cry because of the relationship that he had with his dad, that he just wanted his approval or something, So the effect that us men have on each other and our children and grandchildren is amazing. So we need to step up and try to do that. So, yes, I try what I can, do what I can. I'm involved with the men's ministry at our church and things like that, and doing these interviews and stuff like that to just hopefully encourage people to take a look at themselves, make some changes that they need to make, whether it's something small. I know for myself, being affectionate with my children is hard. I didn't have that growing up. I have to work on things like that. So there's things I have to do every day to try to change my patterns. And you would think it'd become easier. It doesn't necessarily. It's like being an alcoholic. You're always an alcoholic. You may not drink, but you're still an alcoholic. I may be better, but I still have to work at things. Every day can be a struggle at times. So that's why I say I'm just an average guy trying to get through and do these things myself. And I hope that if it helps one person out there by hearing my story, then so be it.
Well, that's a great day then, isn't it?
It is. And I've had that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to have somebody come up to you and say, wow, and this guy brought me my book and he had underlined all these parts of my book and said what it meant to him. And boy, I just started crying right there, and I hate to admit it, but I just was amazing. I thought, really, I would have never thought it would have that kind of influence. I was hoping it'd maybe reach one person, but I've heard good things from people like him and others that my story resonates with them, and I hope it gives somebody the encouragement to change things. They can. I always say, if you remember the movie Sixth Sense, here had all these pieces, and at the end, one small bit of information changed the entire previous part of the movie. And I think your life can be that way. If you just change a small thing, you can take back all that stuff. And that's kind of what I'm doing with what I'm doing now. I've taken all that stuff I went through and I've given it a purpose by telling my story. I believe people can do that.
Well, and it says a lot for what you're doing, because all this stuff is usually passed down from one generation to another. I mean, as children, we learn from our parents how to act, how to react, what to do. Like if situations come up and the first reaction's anger, then, it's easy for children to mimic that. So it takes a lot to break these generational ties and start a new, fresh slate going, you know what? I didn't like that. That didn't work really well for me. We're doing it totally different this time.
Right. And it is. I have to admit, as much as I hate to say it, I had a lot of the same behaviors of my dad. And that was part of that
Everyone
forgiveness.
does,
Yes. And so you can break them. And I'm not saying it's easy, because every once in a while I can slip back into those types of things and that behaviors and that, I did have a point in my life when that was my normal reaction, freak out first and ask questions later, so I can still do that.
Yeah, it's interesting though, if you grow up in chaos, that's what so it's easy to do that, but it takes great strength and courage to say, you know what, we're going to try doing things a different way. We're going to totally remap how we're doing. So, hey, kudos to you for stepping up and not only sharing your story, but also taking it out there and teaching men how to, change their story as well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and you're right. Chaos can feel normal. I mean, to people who grew up in chaos, that can feel normal. So to get into another, to change things doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel right. And so it can be very difficult. And I have seen this passed on, generation to generation and stuff. And it just saddens me to see the next generation taking on. But yes, if you can make the changes, and I know it won't feel normal to you maybe, but you can make those changes, you can move forward, and you can progress and break that dysfunction and not pass it on.
Well, there is hope at the end of the tunnel there, as far as what people can do. And obviously your life has been a testimony to overcoming hardship and turning things around.
Well, thanks. And if I can turn around, anybody can.
I think that's how we all feel, But I mean, really, you've gone through you went through so much through such a short period of time, and to be able to turn your life around, I mean, kudos to you. So, Timo, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. Where can our listeners connect with you? I know you have your own show as well, so why don't you share a little bit about that?
Well, I did have a podcast. I'm not doing it currently, and maybe I'll come back to it someday. I'm not sure, but I just went to focus and do some other things right now. But they can find me on my website, which is timolson.info, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter as Timo, which is my nickname. It's just my first name, Tim, and last initial O. Timo, the number 2, funky. I came up with that before I knew I was going to be doing all this. So I love funk music, so that's where that comes from. But you can get to both Twitter and Facebook through the website, timolson.info, and my book is there, or it's on Amazon. And my email address is right on there, too. If anybody ever wants to just send an email, gladly we'll talk to anybody who just has a question or anything. I'm not a professional. I'm just somebody who's been through it and came out the other end, and just working my job I just work a normal job and live with my wife and kids, and we just live life. And if somebody wants to just ask a question, go right ahead. It's right there for you. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, Timo, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
You bet. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
What a great time that was, and thank you so much for sharing your insights and wisdoms with us. We are at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.